Hello, everybody, and welcome again to Keeping It Spiritually Simple. And today I have an angel with many angels, and her name is Rebekah Renee. And that was very spontaneous what just came through there, because you are an angel with a lot of angels. I don't know how else to even describe you. So please welcome and tell our viewers a little bit about you and some wonderful messages you have today for us.
Oh gosh, I know sometimes it's like, where do you start? My name's Rebekah. I live in Clearwater, Florida right now. It's interesting. I've been on this path, oh gosh, since I was really young. Most people on this path have interesting sensitivities, and it's funny because I didn't really understand it at a young age, but I can remember being, even in elementary school, I remember sitting in classrooms and being able to just have things like telepathy and know what others were, and empathy as well, but know what others are thinking and know things about others, and almost to the point of overwhelm. And it's just I just thought of that. They should actually have not only special schools for really sensitive children, but sort of like a guidebook. I just thought of that now, looking back at who I was. And I could hear the thoughts of, like, say, kids in the class. Like would know like who had a bad life, who had not a bad family, but a more dysfunctional or a family that was dense. I could pick up on energy and just information like that about kids being really young, and like, oh, this person is terrified of the teacher, or this person is totally daydreaming, having such a radar on for those around me. And it was like, it could be kind of uncomfortable when you're little, it was like, because again, still not making sense of it. And it's like, okay, how do you shut this psychic noise off? How do you cope with that? So yeah, I'd say my journey started out pretty young. And I even going into high school, I'd say around 8th grade, in my school, they introduced psychology classes, and it was like, oh my God, I mean, there's supposed to be some kind of therapist, healer, or psychologist or something. I kind of instantly knew that. I was just so drawn to all of it. And then my family was pretty spiritual as well. I mean, they had organized religion in the background, and Christianity, as a lot of us come from, and they had Judaism on the one side, this and that. But I always knew that there was so much more than what you were told, and also the fear-based things that go along with all those things, which a lot of people have left organized religion, which can be a good thing. But so those are some of the things that led me on my journey. I was drawn to, and just even looking at people around me, it was kind of like, okay, why are they living their life this way? They could be doing this differently. And I know we're not supposed to, in a sense, fix people, but how can I fix this issue they have? They're really suffering, So I felt like there was a need for that in the world. And I was kind of going to be kind of geared toward that. And then my family, everyone in their own ways had different psychic abilities. My grandmother was very much a medium, but she wasn't a practicing medium. Like, she didn't read tea leaves or charge money for it. But different things in my family were really interesting. Like, for example, one time, and I'll talk more about kind of this as well. This is kind of my family's background, so it does kind of describe, how I got into a lot of this and was drawn to it. But so one time, my grandmother, she was a widow, I'd say maybe for like 8 or 9 years. My grandfather had worked on the railroad, and he normally, when he was alive, he would come in, and they had this routine. He would hang his coat up by the door and put his work boots in the corner and whatnot. And she had lived in a very safe neighborhood. she actually had a state police that lived 2 houses down on the right, and then on the left she had a township police officer, her right next door neighbor. So it was never really a question about safety in the neighborhood. But she used to fall asleep watching I Love Lucy reruns till like 2 in the morning. And I was born in Pennsylvania, and summer there, is pretty short. So she would have her screen door just, locked, and, she liked having the windows and the doors open. So, in summer. So she fell asleep one night watching her I Love Lucy reruns, and was in a deep sleep. And I guess she got startled. She felt a presence. It was my grandfather, and she literally physically felt a light tap on her shoulders. And her name was Margaret. He was like, Margaret. He was like, go lock the doors. And she was like, jumped, she was like, what? And she looked over, and coming out of that really lucid state, our brain waves are going to all those different places. She said she looked over and she saw a vision, and there were his work boots by the door. He'd been gone like for 8 years, right? So, and there was his coat hanging up. And she was like, oh my God, she was just freaked out that she was, was kind of seeing all this multidimensionally. And so she went and she locked the doors. She was still startled. I guess it took her like 2 or 3 hours to go back to sleep. And I guess the next day that one of the houses across the street was robbed. two houses on the street right behind her were robbed, and people were breaking and entering and taking stuff. And I don't know if anyone was harmed, but it was the point of, wow. He gave her a little nudge from the other side, like, go lock the door. So yeah, that's a little bit about my family's background. And it quite interesting.
Passed down.
Yeah, literally. And then other things like my grandmother's family they had 14 kids in their family, and they all had wild stories, but like that. But the other one, my aunt, her first husband, I guess he wasn't so much vibrationally aligned. She doesn't drink, and I guess he was sort of a bit of an alcoholic and this and that. But they back in those days, you kind of like would stay married anyway. So she was married to him. He ended up passing away, and then she met this guy, Ralph. He was actually a really quiet guy, and really aligned with her as well. But she asked for a sign should she marry Ralph. And I guess her first husband, she had her ring that she had, their wedding rings were on this like one of those pointy things that hold them. And I guess she woke up the next day and her ring was mangled and sort of bent. And she's like, okay, that's a pretty good sign that connection is, done with, move on, was, kind of the message she got from it. And it was just like, oh my God, that'd freak me out. But yeah, so there were many things like that in my family. So, so yeah.
Yeah. And there's many of us who have come in that, growing up super sensitive and sensing other people's feelings, maybe getting information we don't understand. We didn't have a support system to understand that. So we just kind of like stuffed a lot of it, or just kind of got used to it, but learned not to say too much, just become more of the observer. But now, how has this led you into all this? Like, I mean, you have all this angelic presence and all this stuff happening to you. So talk about how that's come up and what's happening right now in our beautiful world.
Yes. So yes, with the angelic presence and what I do. So that kind of developed over the years. Some things I would sort of channel in on my own. Other stuff I've and still have to this day. I think we never stop learning. We always have teachers, no matter how high or far we go. But I had many teachers along the way that taught me some really cool things, or enhanced what I was already able to do. Over the years I started, your energy grows the more you do this. It only grows stronger and stronger. I took classes from other people. I developed my own things. It kind of didn't happen overnight, but I always was like, I sort of always had this go big or die attitude. Like, well, if you're going to do something, take it as high as you can go, help as many people as you can go. really, really like really commit to, you know, I don't know, I had this thing for my mission, like I just have to do this. And it's such an amazing thing to be able to do the very thing that you came here to do. It's like wow. But yeah, it grew over time. Angelic presences, it's interesting because on some level, you know, we have Archangel Michael, we have the different names, but as a collective, they sort of all conglomerate into one big angel, if you could see them in that level, you know what I mean? But
Yes.
yet, you know, everything appears in ways that we can understand as humans, and even appear to us in ways that we can sort of comprehend, um, on the human level. You know, we like the different names. We like, oh, I can call on this one for this, or I can call on this one for that. And they're very real. And, you know, the way they speak to people is different. You know, for some people, it's just a knowing. They just know things. For some people, you know, all the clairaudience and clairvoyance and all that, it can be different. And sometimes, you know, it's interesting because in the biblical references to angels, there are instances of, oh, they saw an angel and fell flat on their face, you know, this and that. And there's some truth to that. I one time was in New York City and had just finished a session with somebody, and one of the angels came in really strong, and I was like, oh my God, I'm gonna die, like, you have to get out of this room kind of thing. They're just, the magnificence of them is so amazing, and it's just like, oh my God, it was like, you're killing me with light, you know. But yeah, sometimes they'll make their presence more known than other times, and especially when we're in fear, they'll show up stronger, or to give us a warning. That's a huge one. There's one I like to call the angel of death. And when that angel comes, you know, you either need to act quickly, or you're being warned about something. And a few times for near miss car accidents, I felt that angel come in, and it was like, you know, don't go down this road, or don't do this, and kind of discerning that voice is the thing. And the other one, I had just had my younger daughter, and I had developed 2 weeks later, I developed a kidney infection, and it went septic into my body. I had a fever of like 106.3 or something crazy. All my organs were shutting down. And it was funny, that angel sort of comes into the corner of the room. I'm kind of delirious at that point. I'm like, I guess I was turning gray, but I was definitely about to leave my body. And we did a life review, and she showed me, she's like, well, if you take this path now, even though you're going to be really drawn to the light, of course, she said, this is what's going to happen to your daughter at age 14. And like, one of mine wouldn't live as long. Like, everything we do, you know, has an effect on everything around us. So it was like, and she showed me all the people I wouldn't meet and all the missed opportunities. And it was like, okay, I'm definitely want to stay, you know. And I was like, what do I do? And she's like, open your mouth. So I opened my mouth, and this like team of nurses and doctors came in, and they were doing code whatevers on me. And then they kind of were trying to get my fever down. And it was really interesting. You know, the angels can be in human form one time. And there was this nurse hovering over me, like dumping buckets of ice on me and putting them under my armpits. And she was like, she was trying to joke around with me because she knew I was kind of like, okay, what's going on? And she's like, don't worry, honey, we'll save Brent's house, because she had blonde hair. She's like, you're a blonde, I'm a blonde. She's like, we're going to save your, because my fever was so high. And I'm like, that was such a dumb joke, but I started laughing. At that moment, she made me laugh, and it was just kind of in my face, and I popped back into my body, and I was like, okay, I'm back into my vessel completely. And but yeah, they you know, they can come in so many different frequencies and with messages and things like that. But okay.
Yes, they can. And thank you for sharing that story. I think that many of us have had that little, we don't realize that it's an angel or the higher self in the forms of the angelics giving us a
Yeah.
warning to turn right or turn left, or, you know what, don't go out of the house today, or cancel that meeting, or actually go to that
Yes.
meeting. Or I remember once getting into a car accident. It was 2021. And all I know is I heard a boom and the car was bouncing up and down. And I
Wow.
heard a voice say, it's almost over. Try to relax. And so I tried to do that. And then when it stopped, I didn't know that the car had flipped and it was on its roof and it was spinning on the road and hitting all kinds of things. And so when I crawled out of, I was in the middle, like the bucket seat, the middle, the driver wasn't there. And I was told to shout out for him, and he was passed out. He was thrown from the car. Then the other person was pinned in the car. So I was able to relax enough to be able to get everybody where they needed to be, find a dark house at like 2 a.m. And then afterwards, I realized how banged up my neck was. But at the same time, that I will never forget that voice. I will never forget hearing, relax, it's almost over.
Wow.
I know, right?
Like that calm and that, yeah.
It just calmed me immediately, no matter what was happening. I was getting bobbled around because I wasn't in a seatbelt.
Wow.
Yeah. It was a while back.
That is, yeah, that's powerful. Yeah, especially those moments when you should be freaked out, and then their calming energy comes in, and somehow everything's going to be okay, and that you're being protected. Yeah, it's quite amazing.
It is, and you can be the commander too. You can be one of those.
Yes.
If there is a situation around you that requires instant XYZ for whatever life-threatening or whatever situation is happening, I'm one of those. I will jump to attention, ABCD, without even thinking. I will get everyone where they need to go. And it might be 3 days later, I'll have an emotional breakdown. Like, holy crap, how did that occur? And so I know that that's what's innate in me. It's my antenna to God. It's the commander in me. So that's awesome too. And that's working with our angelics as well. So continue on, Rebekah.
Yes, that just brought to mind. I was actually traveling with Patrick one time, and it was one of those times where that voice came in super strong, and it's not like something that happens all the time. And it was like, you shouldn't be on the road tonight. And there was a rental car that had to be taken, I think, from Phoenix to Vegas or something like that. And I just had that feeling like, oh my God. And he was like, no, the car has to be back by 5 a.m. or I don't know, some 1 a.m. or something. It was in the middle of the night. And I was just like, oh my God, I don't feel good about this trip. So sure enough, something happened, and am I thinking about another trip? One of these trips. Anyways, there was this was right around 3 a.m. I remember being half asleep, and I remember it was kind of like, okay, you need to stay up kind of thing. And it was like, because I had that feeling. And there ended up being I want to say like a 10-car pileup, but there were semis involved on this particular highway. And I remember we had to make an abrupt stop. And your story made me think of this, but we should have hit the tail end of the semi in front of us, but somehow we didn't. And it was almost like we jumped a timeline sort of in that moment and stopped literally right then and there, and abruptly stop it. And I remember thinking, oh my God, this was really close. And I remember looking out at the window sort of simultaneously and seeing like the biggest shooting star go across the sky in that moment. And I was like, oh, wow. One of those, like, it was like something from a movie. It happened so quick. And then it was like, okay, I think it's time to pull over for the rest of the night. And that's what happened. But it was just like one of those simultaneously, as we were stopping, seeing a shooting star. I don't even know what made me look. And then, it was a very multidimensional experience. And then the car stopped. Of course, my heart was pounding, and it was kind of like, oh my God, literally should have literally slammed right into this semi truck that sort of abruptly stopped. But yeah,
Well, I think it's a prime example of, now that more and more people are talking about these kinds of experiences, that we're
yeah,
communicating more. We're not just on this 10 and 2 agenda for the day. We have to
yeah,
stop and say, okay, all right, I'm getting in my car to go somewhere. Let me think about the best route. And your GPS could tell you one route, and your innate part of you says,
yeah,
look at this other route.
yeah.
I never doubt that. I commune with them just
No,
like I'm talking with you right now. I commune with them 24/7. And it
yeah,
has saved my life on many occasions and brought me joy. And
yeah,
it's so natural to me now that it's like I can't even imagine not. When I plan a meeting, when things happen, I always ask, is
yeah,
this a good time? And if I get a feeling of, you know what, this is not a good time, so I'll go, okay, so I need to contact this person and cancel this appointment. The answer is yes. And sure enough, I'll reach out and that person will say, oh, thank God, I can't do this today either. I'm so glad that you're
yes,
changing it. So I never,
yeah,
never doubt that. And that's a prime example of working with our spiritual angelics, our galactic team. They're all the same. They're all the same
yeah, they
as far
are.
as
They sure
they're our
are.
light body family. So that brings
Mm-hmm.
us to you as an adult and doing the kind of work that you're doing. And so tell us a little bit about that.
Yeah, so I one of my main things I focus on is teaching cellular memory healing. I've been doing that for years. I also do what I've always been drawn to ancestral clearing as well. That's a huge thing. I'm drawn to, and I do different things with that that I sort of channeled in. Definitely we get here and somehow they can be a sort of interrelated as well. We have our ancestors' DNA, and some of them have been through like horrible shit in the centuries before us. And it's like that can limit us, like their traumas, their fears, like, oh my God, um, their preferences in life, different things. So I feel like we're here to take it higher, to break those glass ceilings and to go and evolve far higher than our predecessors did. And I've definitely seen that in my own family, and it's really cool to see and watch. And we always have at least that one person who is like, okay, we're stopping all this stuff that didn't work for you guys, and we're taking this higher. We're expanding our consciousness. We're living more aligned with our soul rather than our ego or our family's patterns, and we're doing this. And I think that also helps the generations that come after us as well. So I love ancestral healing. The cellular memory healing, you know, everything has, we have cellular memories in our organs and our energy field. Like, for example, people that have, one person got, I heard a few of these stories years ago. One person got a heart transplant, and this person all of a sudden started writing poetry. Like a month later, they were channeling the person's inspiration that was in their heart cellular memory.
Mm.
Things like that. Another person got someone's, I don't know what organ it was exactly, but they got someone else's organ and sort of started taking on their preferences. I think this person was a vegetarian, and then like whenever they were able to eat after surgery, they asked for chicken or steak. And their family's like, well, you've been a vegetarian for 20 years. Like, why do you want that? So that's kind of stuff is amazing to me. But yes, so our organs hold memories, of our traumas, our past life traumas and all that. So to clear them and re-imprint the organs is sort of what happens. And then the organs can vibrate higher without holding those traumas. Our cells hold certain traumas without, us having to relive or recreate those over and over and over. We can create and imprint something new. And that's why I love that. It's very, very effective, very powerful. Some things are stubborn and we have to work on them more of imprints that we can have, but yeah, just releasing those, helping people to release those traumas and integrate them with a higher vibration. Like we hold fear in our kidneys, our base chakra area. So helping someone to release that fear and then re-imprinting the kidneys with safety, things like that. And then they create less of the other and vibrate at those free, and our organs can regenerate. I mean, I have to laugh because that when I was really sick and like having a near-death experience, I had a kidney infection. I've also had a history of stones, which some of that is diet. But it was funny. I only see Western medicine if I have to, or and Western medicine has its own definitely purpose, and it's not like we just energy heal everything. But so I get my kidney stones checked every so often to make sure I'm not developing one. And
Sure.
the doctor was like, wow, showing me these numbers. He's like, your kidneys are like that of like a 20-year-old or something, or a 19-year-old. And I was just like, that's interesting. And I thought, oh my God, over the years, they've regenerated. I've worked on myself. I've had other people work on me. Like, that's insane, and even things like, we get a stomach lining every 3 days. So it's like, when people say I'm this amount old, there's maybe some truth to that, but yet there's not. We're like, our cells are renewing. We're renewing every day. So we're led to bought into this thing where we have to age and get old and feel yucky and degenerate, and we can regenerate, and we do constantly, which is one thing that this work does, and it's like, it's not uncommon, like, to work on someone and sometimes even after one time and be like, oh my God, you look 5 years younger, like what happened to you? And just they dropped a certain amount of density and integrated more light into themselves, and it's like their face is more radiant, or they just sort of look somewhat younger, and it's like, wow, that is so cool to see, and yeah, if you even look back, like if even some of our ancestors, and we don't think it, we're just used to, sometimes we feel the energy coming in and it's shifting us, but sometimes we're so used to how we look, but to them, we would be pretty glowing and pretty bright as far as our evolution, even in the past several years. We've dropped collectively, not that there's not a lot still processing, but so much heaviness and density of our ancestors and of the collective energy that we've all kind of been called to transmute. It's pretty alchemical, and if we did it all at once, it would fry up and our circuits would sizzle. Which that's a whole nother thing I could talk about, something that happened to me.
No, please do. And I think that we all need to understand, the energy part of it.
Yeah. So this happened. This is a personal thing that happened to me. I was, let's see, 2013, I want to say, or 2013. Yeah. So it was interesting. I had all these doors closing in my life. I ended up going on a trip to Australia. Ended up staying almost 6 months. I didn't think I'd be there that long. I kind of overstayed my visa. It was kind of interesting. And it was weird. Each time I went to and from this trip, it was funny. I psychically saw it because I wasn't sure if I was going to go. Like, I saw myself on the plane. It was funny. I saw myself on the plane, and the plane kind of angles when it goes to turn into, it's getting close to their airport. I saw the plane. I felt the plane turning, and I had a layover in Seoul, Korea, somewhere I'd never been in my life. And the lady next to me, we had been talking about energy stuff actually, and she was real fascinated by all the stuff I did. And I was like, oh my God, I was like, see that airport? She goes, yeah. I said, I literally felt this in my dream. I could feel the plane turning. It was sort of like a waking dream. Like, I saw it as I was waking up, actually, a month before I left. And I said, I literally saw this airport. I saw this whole scene. And I was like, this is crazy. So, but anyways, I went there, came back, and I came back, and it was really weird. I came to my hometown, and I was like, oh God, where do I like fit in now? I've been gone for several months, and I had just finished a divorce, and I was also part of a healing center, and I wasn't really going to work with them anymore, the group I was with. And I also had a job with autistic kids on the side. I wasn't going to go back to that. I kind of didn't know what I was going to do. The next chapter wasn't in yet. And so I literally started getting kind of depressed because I was used to manifesting and kind of just knowing what my next move was, and all of a sudden it was blank, and I really didn't know what to create. Um, I just didn't have a clue. And during that time, my energy started getting stronger and stronger. And I went through this sort of like 5-month period, this total energetic cleansing to where I was going to be changed and never be the same. And it was so intense. There were a lot of days I couldn't get out of bed. And it was weird because the energy had kind of flowed into me, even for my healing work with people, in a sort of gentle manner. And all of a sudden now I was vibrating so high that I was like, oh my God, I feel like I'm being electrocuted. It would just sort of pulse through my field. But as that would happen, it was clearing out, it was clearing me naturally. It was just kind of took on a life of its own. And I was like, what the hell am I doing? And it was such an intense clearing. My skin broke out. It was like, I look like a teenager with acne, and I usually have kind of clear skin. And I was like, oh my God, I was just like, what the hell's happening? And I was exhausted to where I either had too much energy or I couldn't get out of bed. I couldn't drive for several months. My vertigo was so bad. I started like becoming really in tune with some of the higher multidimensional aspects, which I would kind of travel in and out of, but now I was sort of embodying them more. And different angels would come in that were like so fiery. And it was like, oh my God, it was like, you're killing me. Like I can't tolerate you kind of thing. And it was interesting. My family was like, what are you doing? I was like, I don't know. And then it's like, I couldn't explain to them. And the heat that would come through my body was so strong. I would go to one of my healers from our healing center. I'm like, oh my God, I'm burning up. And he'd like do this thing down my spine to try to like balance my energy. It'd last for like an hour. It's like, okay, I'm losing my mind here. I'm going crazy. And the experiences I had were wild. I remember at the time I was staying at my dad's house as I was in transition to not knowing what to do next in my life. And I remember sitting in the backyard, sort of meditating. I was on the phone with one of my healer friends, kind of asking them like, okay, how can I like not feel like I'm stoned? I'm like, people do acid to get where I'm at now. And I'm like, I'm just doing it naturally. And he started laughing. And I looked at my hand and I just saw rainbow energy coming out of my palm chakras. I'm just sitting there like looking, and I'm like, this is trippy. But at the same time, I couldn't function in a third dimensional world for 5 months. I didn't know how to function with that. And it was quite wild. But at the same time, when I did feel better, and I might like, which wasn't often during that period, but someone would be like, oh my God, can you work on so-and-so? Like I have a tumor or something. I just like sort of zap it, and it'd be like, things would happen that they would disappear, or this person would have some kind of interesting miracle happen. I'm like, oh my God, I'm really dialed up really high now. And I didn't learn how to balance and work with it. And I did end up becoming more functional. And literally, I'd say it wasn't long after that I ended up doing a lot of traveling. But during that time, even like driving, and it's kind of funny, I still actually kind of have this to an extent, driving through mountains, like my vertigo would be like, oh my God, I'm in a high place. And I wouldn't know, like one time I was in California, and like I was San Luis Obispo area, and I'm driving the car, and all of a sudden my energy body was on the other side of the mountain before the car was. So my perception became really huge.
Mm-hmm.
Like, okay, this is weird. I feel like I'm on major drugs here. And I'm like, I'm here in the car, but I can feel me on the other side of the mountain already zooming down the road. And I'm like, I hate this. I was like,
Yeah.
so learning how to have a different perception, a different consciousness, and a different thing was something I dealt with. And none of my healer friends were going through it in that year. And they were just looking at me like, wow, and literally, I'd say within 4 to 5 years, there started popping up all these Ascension Symptom groups on Facebook. And then it was like, oh, I was like, I
That's
know
what
how
it
to handle
was.
this now.
Yeah.
Yeah. I was like, I know how to handle this now. I've been through this and I can sort of function now. And I'm like, they're all freaking out. And I'm like, okay. I'm like, so now I can sort of assist other people with that, because and assure them that it's not going to be forever what they're going through. And they can integrate and function with such a higher level of multidimensionality and sort of tether that divine spark into their body. But it was horrible for a while. Even like we just had this eclipse in Scorpio, and I'm Scorpio, and it's like, wow, I kind of breezed through that. It was intense, where even like 6 or 7 years ago, I would get heart palpitations with eclipses. One time I ended up in the ER. I was like, oh my God, I'm dying, just from the energy that can come in from solar eclipses, lunar eclipses, solar flares and all that. But they shift us. Now I sort of embrace it, like, oh, get to go to another level. Before I'd be like, I remember being wrapped in foil and having a foil hat on to shut the energy off from my crown, so I would not like, I felt like I was frying up. Yeah. And it was like
the Tin Man of Wizard of Oz is like, okay, nobody oil me. I just got to put this on for protection. I get it. I've gone through similar experiences throughout my life.
Yeah. And I have a picture somewhere of one of those foiled up moments. And it was like, okay, maybe a Faraday cage, like something to shut this off. But now it's kind of a weird thing. It's like, oh wow, going to the next level, a sort of knowing like, okay, you're not going to die. You might drop some more density. And again, which we wouldn't want to do all at once, because we would get, really sick if we dropped all of our dense energy in one sort of thing. But yeah, layer by layer, we move into our light body, and we do feel lighter, and it's like, we get less, like, even if I have a client that's like, I'm heavy and depressed, and it's like, well, I used to hold more of that, and I've cleared so much that I'm lighter most of the time, not that anything can't come through, or I feel less of the collective energy and their heaviness, because I'm vibrating above it. So then when you're vibrating above it, you influence it from that higher level. You're sort of swooping down in, and that's when you can have such powerful effect on the people around you. Like, our field goes out so far. Like, you can be, in your own element, vibrating high, and walk through a shopping mall and literally clear the fields of everyone just being on auto healer, and they have no clue. But then sometimes they do, like, or they don't know what it is, if they're more third dimensionally minded. Like, I still sometimes work sort of, I call them 3D jobs and gigs, well, for the side money, and just for just to do something different than energy healing. And I worked one, I do brand ambassador jobs, and I worked one last week. This young girl standing next to me, she goes, oh my God, she goes, I'm really dizzy. And I thought we're standing next to each other, and we were, still post eclipse, and I'm like, I'm vibrating really high. And I was like, I just know that I'm affecting her field. And I'm like, I want to tell her, but I don't, that she's probably really energy sensitive. And we ended up talking about it, and she was like, wow, we ended up having a conversation that we might not have had, but that happens as well if you're really in close proximity to someone. Another time was in a Walmart checkout, and of course, you'll affect electronics and things like that really easy, but the cashier started having a hard time. There were like 2 people in front of me, and there was this British couple. I still remember their accent. And all of a sudden the cashier couldn't put their order through. The thing wouldn't scan. It wasn't even all that. It was a lot of things. And somehow our fields got all connected. And she just started laughing, and she's like, I don't know what's happening to me. She started like feeling kind of weird, the cashier. And then this couple in front of them, this older English couple, I remember they were just kind of looking, and I'm like, wow, I'm like, my field's affecting them. And then I was like, should I tell them? And I'm like, how can I, sometimes you're like, how can I talk about this? Because you have an idea of what can be going on. And it was like, and then we just started talking about galactic things. And it's funny, most people are like, wow, where can I find out more about this? Or I want to research this. This is so fascinating. I've thought about things like this, but you can sort of like clarify things, and just, things like, yeah, get the app. I used to have an app called Cellular. It would show all the KP index and all the geomagnetic storms, it's because I'd want to know, like, if I felt off or weird or had a little more vertigo than usual. And I've told people we share information. And but yeah, your
Yeah.
field, affects affects everything around you. Our fields do. So we're those of us that are evolving quickly, there's a lot of power in that for the whole of us as a collective to transmute the people and things around us.
Yes, and we have to understand that we do hold that power. And one of the messages that's coming through right now is everybody wants to get on this train. Everybody wants to excel and to ascend and to do their shadow work and so on. But then they're the first people to complain, oh, I feel terrible. I feel horrible. This is happening. That's happening. And it's like, okay, you're getting what you asked for, just not in the way that you thought you were going to get it. Are you being more gentle with yourself? When things come in for me, I know when to slow down and when to speed up. It's just sort of an innate thing of knowing. And when stuff happens and I'm walking sideways, I know it. It's like, just slow down before you go down the stairs. Okay, Sandy? Don't try to rush today. It's just one of those days where you're just going to be sideways. And it's all of it. And one of the biggest things about going through the ascension, it's easier if you can learn to flow with it, to adapt, to bob, to weave, to pivot. But we're taught to control, to stop. Like, oh, that feels weird. I need to stop that immediately. It's just like when your body starts to not feel well, oh, I've gotten sick. Something got in. Yeah. I'm sick. And they're not looking at it as like, oh no, my body's doing what it's supposed to do. There could be some little viral invaders in there, and it just needs to bring its temperature up and release that. Thank you, body, for doing what it's supposed to do. So I think one of the lessons here, talking about your experiences and so on for the viewers, is, be gentle with yourself. Reach out to people who can help you on this path. Reach out to Rebekah, reach out to Patrick, reach out to me, people that can help you get on your path and understand that all these things are happening because you came here asking for it. And you're not just doing it for yourself, you're doing it for all your brothers and sisters.
Yes.
That might not be able to handle as much. That might not be able to. Yeah, girl, I got goosebumps.
Yeah, no, I have thought of that as well. I have thought of that. Wow, I'm processing this for, different things that get information. Yes. I'm processing this for 80,000 souls that can't process this. And it's like, oh my God, sometimes, but it's like, wow, what a sort of heroic thing to do on behalf of those souls, even with like something happened. I was with a group of mediums one time, and there were trapped souls, again, this isn't all embodied, that were, I'll never forget this. There were 4 of us. There were trapped souls that were, they were Nazis at the time, and they were sort of stuck in a dimension. And it was interesting. I had this vision. We were all feeling them and like, okay, wow, we're supposed to assist them somehow. And it was like they sort of kneeled in the light and sort of like repented on, where they were at that time and what they did. And they really felt the damage, and, as if it were happening to them. Yeah. And they were ready to release that at the soul level. I can't remember, there must have been thousands of souls, and collectively release that for their soul group, the ones that presented to us at that time. And the energy that we felt as they were shifting and healing part of the collective and healing their own souls was like, it was mind-blowing. And it was like, wow, there were 4 of us somehow assisting with this. And I mean, just the heat that I got in my body, and then the cold and the rush of like, almost as if we helped open up a dimension and they sort of flowed through. And it was like insane. Like it could be in a movie, that people would be, all eyes were glued onto these souls, like, and how we all, felt it energetically. But it was like, we do so much more sometimes than we can imagine, collect with that collective energy as well.
Yeah, and I think a lot of people who have been on the what I want to call that first wave of living their life based on communing with the other side, knowing and unknowing, you got to take a leap of faith and trust what's happening. But at the same time, you're guiding the masses, you're guiding the collectives. But also you're guiding yourself and you're thanking others for guiding you as well, because we all reach out to the frequencies in which we've come here to resonate with. You know, and so we're drawn towards people and groups, and then next thing you know, you graduate and you're with another group, and then maybe years later you're back with this group because now they're resonating. And I don't mean just group, it could be individuals, it could be groups, it could be tribes, whatever it is. And you just migrate, and then you separate, then you come back and you're like, some of you migrate again, or maybe one or two hang on together, but we're all here to help each other. And the only way to help someone else is you've got to stand in every droplet of this ascension and feel everything within your body, because there are some of us, and I have a feeling you're one of them, because I know I'm one of them. For some reason, I have to experience something from A to Z, from almost to like a near death. I've never had a near death, but I'm close to it. But I'm saying I've got to feel every lump, every bump, every movement, every hair, every fiber, into every piece of sensitivity on all levels of my body. And once I'm through it, I'm like, oh, now I know how to really help the other person. So it's not like I went and got a degree in something that has a format that's now saying, okay, this person is saying this, so they fit into this format. Now you're supposed to say this to them or write a prescription for this. This is you're literally firsthand experiencing God's work, the divine's work, whatever you want to call it. You're experiencing every droplet of it.
Yeah. And that was during that 5-month period where I was processing. I mean, I felt like I processed 500 lifetimes in that 5-month period, all in one. It was like, okay, we're just going to clear and recalibrate into someone new, stronger, better, deeper, you know. And it was just kind of like, my sensitivity became, and it was already really high. So we're like, I'm like, oh my God, like, I don't know how many people could handle this amount of everything I can feel now. I could feel things 1,000 times stronger than I could before that 5-month period. And it was like, oh my God, my sensitivity of like, and I had to avoid crowds and stuff for a while. And, you know, even that itself, it can still be a lot, but I manage it. I can walk through a shopping mall. I can, you know, but there were, in the beginning, it was like, oh God, I have to stay away. And I just listened to my guidance. I have to stay away from people. I have to stay away from everyone. I feel like really raw and open, you know, and it was like, and just feeling things that's on such a deep level, it was like, whoa, you know.
But experiencing it now almost has every little spiny antenna. So when you're working with somebody or somebody is talking with you, you can pick up every little piece on your spiny antenna, and you know exactly what to say, what not to say, what energy to generate in order to help. If you don't have to do a lot of this, you just know, you just innately know, because it's all within your experiences in your God source level, your inner buckets of your soul, I guess I want to say.
And it was even like, you know, I had this, someone do a healing session on me. This was a few months ago. It was like, you know, and I muscle tested this and that, and thought, I don't need a muscle test. You know,
you kind of know.
You just have it. You know, if something's weak or strong instantly, you know, it's like, not that it's a bad thing. It's an awesome thing, but it's just like, you realize, wow, you know, you're just kind of there, and you can pick up on what's strong or weak for another person, or what, you know, even with healing, you know, you'll feel it in your own body. I was doing a Facebook healing one time, and I had this guy, and I'm like, I have to work on your heart. I'm like, there's some deep stuff in your heart, and, you know, and then he emails me and says, well, I had 2 heart attacks this year. You know, it's just like, you just are there. You picked up on his heart, you know, it's because of that sensitivity you have, you can just kind of instantly do that. And
well, another message that's coming through here too is we all come in with different gifts. We're all on some frequencies, but we all have different, and I don't mean like gifts, it's just there's skills in which we've honed in on many different lifetimes that we've brought in. For me, I'm very kinesthetic. I feel everything through my body. That's how I get my information, which is why I say people call that being empathic. learn how to skill and hone your empathicness. That's a beautiful source of information to get.
Mhm.
Some people are more into the words and the brainiac side of it. There's many
Mhm.
different levels. We all can't be the same. There's so many different
No.
flavors and colors of the rainbow that we're all on it, because we have to be on it in order to create all the flavors of the rainbow.
Yeah, exactly. And some of it is not even written, in like clairaudience, clairvoyance. I
Exactly.
have a friend, and I've done this myself a few times. But I have a friend that can smell cancer on people. She just gets a smell. And
Wow.
she's not a practicing healer. She's actually a nurse. And I said, you could save lives if you could come out. Should I tell so and so? I was on the elevator with them and I smelled it.
You have to be so careful with all this. Someone's gonna look at you
Of
like,
course. And
ah,
how do you present this?
hit the emergency button.
Yeah. And how do I present this to someone? By the way, I smell
I
cancer
smelled
on
you.
you,
I
Yeah, I
smelled
smelled
you.
you.
Yeah.
And I said, if you could kind of learn how to, that's another thing, format it into a way you can tell them, say, I have this ability and I've had this happen with other people. And she has saved a few lives from it. I think like 2 ladies with breast cancer, and they went and got checked, and sure enough, they had it.
Yeah.
And it was like, telling people sometimes is another thing, that we can integrate more of this into the, even into Western medicine. Like one of my good friends, she's a dermatologist, but her passion is actually sound healing. She loves that, but there's good money in being a doctor, like amazing money. So, but one time she's like, I'd like to integrate energy stuff into my practice. Can you show me how? And she's like, she paid me real well. I come up for like, I don't know, a day or two. And honestly, with the people, I kept it less on the spiritual level and about angels. I talked just about quantum physics, and some of the patients were like, I was like, well, I said, so your body's energy, everything in the universe is energy. And I said, the blocks of energy in your energy field, your aura, or in your organs and whatever, I said, they can contribute to disease rather quickly. And I said that we're just going to work with your energy to balance it. Just very, very, very like that, and they were
Very
like,
diplomatic.
yeah. And I
You
didn't
gotta
get
be
into all my,
diplomatic.
yeah, it's not like, oh, your spirit guides
Yeah.
want you to know this, and
Yeah.
don't date that boyfriend you have. He's good. He's horrible. None of that, it was just like, okay. And it was really wild that, people love it, and they're like,
Mhm.
wow, I feel different. And one lady, my friend, the doctor friend, she was sort of kind of like, wow, that lady's usually like kind of bitchy and moody. And she goes, I've never seen her like that. She's different, And I was like, I know. I'm like, that's just, that's the power of integrating something like this, because you can help them on so many other levels. But that was just, I did that one time to kind of give her an idea. And we're seeing more of that actually. And we're going to be seeing more. Ironically, in my hometown, which is a small town, they actually had a hospital, and it had a complementary medicine center, but it had their regular doctors in there. Like, so basically someone could go in and they would see their primary care doctor if they had, I don't know, something that needed an antibiotic or something like that, or an injury, whatever it was. And then he would refer them over to alternative medicine side, and they might get energy healing, they might get hypnosis, they might get acupuncture, on and on and on. And I was like, wow, why isn't this in every state? And this was like 8 years ago or 10 years ago. And
Mhm.
then their insurance would pay for it on top of that. It was like, they're where we should be, and it was like really cool to see that in my own hometown. It was like, wow, like
Yeah, hopefully we're moving into all that. Well, I know our time is coming to an end and you've got another appointment after this. So we already know that one message is to honor your ascension, to honor your spiritual growth and being in tune with yourself. And be careful what you ask for, because you're going to get it. And how do you deal with that? And if you have issues dealing with some things, reach out to one of us. We're happy to help you. But do we have a message that we would like to leave with our viewers today? Another
Oh
one
my
from
gosh.
you.
Yeah. You know what? The message would be to now, and it's interesting astrologically, I think Mars is going to do something with Aries, which is
They're going to dinner.
Yeah, they're going
They're going to
they're
dinner.
going to dinner, which will push us into action, you know, and even with what we saw with this school shooting again, which is ridiculous. We are going to be more taking action rather than just having lofty dreams. We're going to be called in situations like, one of the messages is to act like, if there's domestic violence in the house next to you, even if you have to call the police, call the police. Like, don't like, oh, I don't want to interfere. Now's the time to
Yes.
interfere. It's the huge
Action.
interfere in everything. Stick your nosy energetic business in where you're needed, and listen to that voice if it's calling you to act, rather than be afraid, you know, or, oh, what will somebody think about me? And who cares? You could save a life because a lot of times the earth angels are placed exactly in the right place in the right time, you know, and then realizing, wow, well, if I could have acted, this life could have been saved, or this or that. Or yeah, it's all about action. Like, this whole entire rest of this year, we're going to be called to be those earth vessels that in one way or another will be acting, to help people and to help find solutions to the struggles that humanity is going through right now. We have the solutions out there, and channeling them in as well, being still and asking, oh, how can I help? You know, even if it's in small bits and pieces, one thing can affect the whole collective. One move that we make can affect everything and everyone around us.
Yes.
So I think awareness, being aware, and not just sitting by and taking action. And when we're not called to take action, really keeping our vibration as high as possible in spite of tragedies around us, holding the frequency for thousands of other souls that are counting on us, for sure.
Mm-hmm. And you know, another thing is we're many of us are finding our boundaries in our voices. But
Yeah.
those who are not understanding that your voice does not mean you need to hit a panic button and then go off on someone, right? Because they've made you mad for so long or whatever. So if you can work with the energies within the body and understand that some of these symptoms are agitation because it's energy getting locked into the body, and to maybe find something physical to do, find something energetic to do. If it's stretching or breathing or walking or getting a session with somebody, get the energy moving through the body so it doesn't get stuck in little spots that have you hit an impulse button to lash out at someone, because you're creating harm. You're not creating healing. You're creating harm. So your voice can be expressed in many ways. Do your grid work demographically. Send your energy into Mother Earth and all around for peace and harmony and balance for the highest good. So you don't know when you're doing that if you've calmed something that was going to erupt 3 doors down. So maybe before you have to do the 911, maybe you're doing the energetic grid work of peace and healing prior to that eruption. You know, just like we're doing for Mother Earth, you know, Mother Earth's going through all of her shifts and everything else. And maybe before something becomes totally catastrophic, we can maybe get it so it could be minor, smaller movements in order to get the same job done. But it takes each and every one of us to participate. Yeah. Yes, Rebekah, we have to have you on again, and then we'll do some angel. We'll bring in some angel stuff. This was kind of to introduce you.
Yeah, that'd be
and
awesome.
let you kind of get out there a little bit, and then we'll come back and we'll do some more interviews with some other things that we discussed. So is there anything else you'd like to say to the audience today?
No, thanks for having me. And I'm glad it flowed well, considering I went to bed so late. But yeah, this was awesome. Thanks for having me. And my email is soulfire444@gmail.com.
Thank you.
Uh,
That was my next question, is how do people get in touch with you, and what are you offering, and
and
so
my
on?
Facebook, I do sessions, all sorts of type of sessions. My favorite again is cellular memory healing.
Mhm.
I usually get pretty good shifts with people, everyone's different. I usually get pretty good results, in one way or another, to help people shift and to push their stagnant energy out. Um, but I'd hope so after doing it for so long. Good at moving energy, when possible. You can find me on Facebook, and hopefully I'm going to do a live in another day or two. I do Facebook lives just as an offering,
Mhm.
and sometimes my energy is strong and I want to get rid of it to help other people. I used to do them 4 or 5 years ago and have it really build up. We would have lots of people on, and then with Facebook, you mess up your algorithm, and then you're kind of starting all over. But yeah, you can find me on there. And I'm in the middle of trying to create a new website. So I don't have that yet.
That's
But
okay. So there's two places where people can get in touch with you, which I will have the links in there. And the other thing I want to say that I know that Rebekah is saying here is we have to work this like our job, because we came here for these jobs, for these missions. Science tells us that the butterfly goes through metamorphosis once. Okay. But guess what? We're going through it multiple times right now, multiple times. And it's going to cause energy highs, energy crashes, and just do the best that you can throughout the day. If you have a really busy day, just working some gentleness through it. Get yourself some self-love and self-care. Get yourself sessions. Look up Rebekah, myself, Patrick, whatever. Get yourself some body work to help you on this trail, so that you're not tripping over yourself all the time and taking one step forward and 20 steps back, so that you can see things and have the foresight to see them, because you're feeling them whether you realize you're feeling them or not. So I think that's an important message right now too that's coming through. So Rebekah, so much love to you,
thank
girl.
you. You
And
too.
we will see you on the next video, and your links will be in the description. And viewers, thank you so much.
Awesome. Thank you so much.
Welcome. Bye.
Bye-bye.